Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you are viewing me for the first time. As always, I'm Agus and I'm going to be doing a bit of draft today. I had a bit of computer difficulty getting into this one. It had a network error, kicked me out, so I'm hoping that this goes straight into actually drafting some cards. So let's see how this one plays out. And this is not looking hopeful. I suspect we're going to get another network timeout here. Oh no, there we are. Okay, so the rare is, well, it's a decent land. Oddly enough, it pairs up with this one in terms of colour combination. What do I like on here? Honestly, not a massive amount. The land is good. The Ember Cat is good for mana ramp. The Mammoth Spider is good for general defensiveness. Definitely not a fan of that because it's too situational. I suppose that's okay. It's not terrible, but it's not a great first pick. Boneclad Necromancer is reasonable. Cloudkin Seer is decent if I decide to go down either blue-white flyers or elementals. I suppose on that basis I'm probably going to take the Cloudkin Seer here. I don't feel good about that as a first pick, but it keeps me open for both elementals and flyer decks. And really there just doesn't seem to be a massive amount here that I'm that interested in. The Ogre Siegebreaker isn't bad, but it commits me into Rakdos colours, or I have to abandon it. Just don't really feel like there's enough reason to go into those colours just yet. So I'll stick with something that's monocoloured and we'll see what comes around. So straight away an elemental rare. That does point me in the direction that perhaps elemental might be the way that I want to go. Shock is good, Sedge Scorpion is good. Force Claw is a reasonable common. Black-green as a land, it's not terrible. But for me, this is probably still the best. Just because it gives me that ability to go into an elementals deck, and it is a pretty decent elemental. Especially if my other stuff starts dying on it, it's very good indeed. So I think I will take that. Let's have a look. So Scorched Spit is okay, Healer of the Glade is okay, Shock is very nice. Do I want to splash for Shock? Well, quite frankly, maybe yes. Looking at what else there is. Fairy Miscreant. I've not done any playing at all with Fairy Miscreant so far. It would go quite nicely with the Cloudkin Seer into a Flyers deck. So if I move away from Overgrowth Elemental, maybe that's the way to go. Although I don't like turning down Shock at this point, I think I will actually stick with my colours so far and give this a try, because it's early enough that I might pick up loads of them and then I can get loads of card draw going, so let's try that. So again, still nothing in white, which is quite weird because usually there's loads of stuff. I mean, this is here, but it's not a creature. Just surprised not to have seen one so far. Frost Lynx is decent. Vampire of the Dire Moon is decent. Loaming Shaman is decent. Bladebrand is very good if I go into a black deck. Octoprophet is solid for a blue deck. I'll probably take the Lynx at this point because it synergizes quite nicely with my other blue cards and also with the green card that I've picked up so far, as it is an elemental. So I might regret not taking one of these uncommons, but give that a go. And what do you know? So that is an interesting one. I like Season of Growth. I know it's not necessarily the most powerful card on its own, but it does combo well with a load of other stuff. Moorland Inquisitor is good, but I'm not in white yet. I don't think I'd go into white just for that. Frost Lynx, again, same issue as last time. It's good, it blends with everything else. Goblin Smuggler. I mean, I love having the Lavakin Brawler Goblin Smuggler combination, and it does make for a decent splash card. But we're still early, and I think what I'm leaning towards is Gift of Paradise, which just gives me that ability to splash more cards and more reliably. So while it's not the Frost Links, which I would really like, or the Goblin Smuggler, which I'd also really like, I think this one sets me up for opening up better picks later. So I'll take that now. And what do we got here? There's not a massive amount going on in this one, but the Vorst Claw is an elemental. It's a big finishing creature. If I can combine it with some way of giving it either flying or trample, it becomes very good indeed. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got a 1 mana elemental, but it's not in our colours yet, and again, I definitely would not be splashing red just for a Scorch Spitter, so I don't feel like taking that. The only other one that I would think about is Mammoth Spider, because it has that reach. It's very, very good on the defensive, but for the moment I'm going to take the Vorst Claw and beef up my power level. And look at that, rewarded straight away by getting a Mammoth Spider in the very next pack, and nothing else that I would particularly like to take. And I do still really want to get a hammer deck going well, but the equip cost is just prohibitive for almost every standard match. Here I'm gonna stick with the form and take another Gift of Paradise. I may regret this because I think in my last draft I had 2 Gifts of Paradise and ended up taking both of them out because I didn't actually venture into a third colour, but perhaps I'm early enough this time that going into a splash would be a lot more beneficial. Now that's interesting. Not a massive amount here that I want. I do like Mammoth Spider. I shouldn't main deck Plummet, but so many people play Flyers that actually it's quite powerful. But Plummet versus Mammoth Spider, I'd rather have the creature on board that can do the defending, so I guess I'll take another Mammoth Spider. So this isn't a fantastic pack for me. Could take Metropolis Sprite and hope to buff it with something. Could take Convolute. I don't really play Convolute a lot, but I guess it could be quite nasty if we play it at the right time. I think I'll take it, but I expect it's going to go on the sideboard and not see the light of day. It's just not the style of this particular deck. I'll take a Renowned Weaponsmith at this point. It's uncommon, don't have a lot of them, and if I end up seeing a load of artifacts later on, and even other Renowned Weaponsmiths, maybe I can make something work in artifact territory. I could take that, but again, not red. Could take that, but not red. Could take that, but not black. Could take that, just not very good. So I guess I'll take that. Might cut it. At the moment, it looks like I'm solidly in green blue. So I guess a natural end makes sense. I'll take that Healer of the Glade. I'm going to take the uncommon and stick it in the sideboard. I'll hopefully add some gems at some stage. And yay, a mountain. Now that's an interesting one because I do like Dread Presence. It is a very powerful card, but it works best in mono black because you just want swamp after swamp after swamp. So I think I'm going to just give up on the idea of taking that. Could take this and start piling into flash and instants. There is an instant down here that could quite easily wheel. Could also just go for the Netcaster Spider or the Winged Words. Winged Words is particularly nice, especially if I can get one of my flyers out first. What to take? I don't think I'm geared enough towards instants and flash yet. This is the best pick, but you know what, I might pick up some more, and if in doubt, take the uncommon. Now that's a very nice card. I think I'm almost certainly taking that before I even look at anything else. yeah, there is nothing else here that I would have in preference to a Risen Reef. It's a very powerful card for this sort of deck. And it does mean that I now want to prioritise elementals where possible. Now, I said earlier that if I could find a way to get trample, I should take it. There's a way to get trample for a Vorse Claw, so that in. It's also an elemental, so it goes quite nicely. Another overgrowth elemental. I'm getting quite excited about this deck now. Quick look at everything else. Another Frost Lynx, which would have been nice. And then Vorse Claw or Healer of the Glade is on colour and elementals. But I think this one is the one that I want because of the synergy it has when things die. And right, straight away, there's all three uncommons potentially being really good in this deck. Looking through the rest, there's nothing I'll take in preference to one of these three uncommons. Yeah, the Wave Crasher, potentially fantastic if I've got out of Vorse Claw and they've pacified it or something like that. I can just bring it straight back. This one's brilliant to combo with Risen Reef because it adds 3 elementals in one go, so that's brilliant. And this one, of course, just finds anything that I've got multiples of. So I've already got multiples of Overgrowth Elemental and Mammoth Spider, so I could find another one of those and bring them out. So potentially very powerful there. I think what I'm probably going to go with is to keep the elemental synergy, and because I've not really played this one before, and I want to protect my big ones from the possibility of a negative enchantment, I think I'll take this. Someone please tell me if that was a really bad pick, because I sort of feel I should have taken the red card there. So we go from one where I want everything to one where I'm not a huge fan of getting anything. I think that the one that really sticks out as something I should take is Zephyr Charge, because if I can get that out as an enchantment, again I can get a flying Vorse Claw, which could be very powerful late game. Don't really like Fortress Crab, and everything else would require me to splash, and doesn't really look like the sort of card that I want to splash for. That's nice but situational. Yeah, I think it's the Zephyr Charge. Okay, so here are some of those white cards that weren't around earlier, and yeah, they're not bad. +1/+1 for everything. I guess I could go Flying Vigilance. Do I really want to splash for that? Again, probably not. Could get just a nice cheap defender. Do a few of the 2-drops already, and 1 and 2 drops, so not 100% wedded to that. Wolfkin Bond's nice, but I don't have any synergies with it, and again I don't really want to splash for that, so I think I'll just take the Piranhas and go with that. That might get cut at a later point because it's just not that powerful. For this one, shall I take a Bone to Ash? Since there's not an awful lot else there that I think I really want. The Act of Treason could be quite nice, but I don't have anything sacrifice yet, so it's not going to help me. It's not going to help me win unless the opponent's already relatively weak. So yeah, I think Bone to Ash, possibly putting it alongside Convolute in the sideboard, because they're not really going to fit the play style there. I've never quite understood this card. There's a Growth Cycle though, that would go quite nicely. If I'd taken the... oh no, I did take the Blindborn Cutthroat there. Let's put that on, because that could coincide nicely. That is fairly uninspiring. I guess I could take that for the mill, but it's not a mill deck, so what's the point? I'll take a healer. I don't feel happy about that. Hardcover could be quite nice at this point, I guess. Put that on something that's already decent, like Moat Piranhas, and then I've got a defender that can draw me a card, or help me filter out the card that I want. I think that's probably worth it. That's a really good bit of removal for stuff that gets out of control. And actually, almost every deck I come across is going to have something that can target, and I do have the ability to play it. So I think I'm going to speculate on this and see if maybe I go into splashing a couple of colours via the Gifts of Paradise. So let's have a look and see where I end up with that. And while I do like Blade Brand, I don't know if it's powerful enough on its own to splash for. So I'll take another healer. Probably end up cutting something there. I guess at this point I can take the Moment of Heroism since I've already got a white card, and the Soul Mender since I've already got a white card, and the Inspired Charge since I've already got a white card. But because that's double white, I'm just going to drop it straight into the sideboard. It's very unlikely I'll do anything with that. Yeah, that's a powerful card, but there's absolutely no way that it fits into my deck at this point. Tonebound Lich, on the other hand, that could, because of the fact that I've got the Gifts of Paradise, I could decide to splash black instead of white. What else have we got on here? Another Metropolis Sprite, another Frost Lynx, another Growth Cycle, which would actually go very well with the first Growth Cycle. Silverback Shaman, which is very good. So, what to speculate on? Probably the right thing to do is Frost Lynx or Growth Cycle, because they synthesize or synergize very well with either Cutthroat or the Elemental strategy. As much as I like that, I just don't think I can justify splashing a new colour for that. So let's take the Growth Cycle, because I do already have a few Elementals which can synergize very nicely with the Risen Reef if that comes out. And the Growth Cycle could be just a very nasty +5/+5 potentially at a late point in the game, which could make or break winning a match. Another Wave Crasher, that could go quite nicely. Another Growth Cycle which could wheel around as well. So yeah, I'll take the Wave Crasher at this point. Again, that defensiveness could be very powerful. Boreal Elemental fits really nicely with my strategy here. So yeah, I'll be taking that. That's an Elemental flyer. It's just perfect for this deck, I think. And we go from perfect to Vorst Claw or Evolving Wilds, I guess. So Evolving Wilds potentially helps me with the mana fixing if I do want to stay in this white. I suppose another alternative I haven't considered is an Angelic Gift, because that could give that Vorst Claw flying and make it a really, really irritating thing to get rid of, or to block. Would go nicely with Zephyr Charge, which already does similar but requires pumping regularly. And I'm already splashing white, so why not? Let's see if that works. Now, I did take a Renowned Weaponsmith. I could search for the Heartpiercer Bow, but in reality I think I'm so late in this draft, I've seen so few of those artefacts, that the likelihood of me actually playing this at all is relatively minimal already. So I don't think I'm going to be looking at that with any seriousness. I could do another Zephyr Charge. I could do another Gift of Paradise. I think those are probably the choices to look at here. So what do? Do we think about more mana fixing, or do we think about Zephyr Charge? I think we go Zephyr Charge again, because that possibly means I can get rid of the Angelic Gift, because I'll have so much chance of getting this, or so much more chance of getting this out. And I think with only one mana, white mana requirement in any one spell, I think needing to go heavily into Gift of Paradise is probably not essential at this point. So I will take that and see what comes up for the rest of this. Another Growth Cycle is jumping out at me. That's again potentially very powerful indeed. And I think I'm just going to drop that in. Could be a nasty surprise for anyone that thinks that my creatures are a bit weak. Should I go for... I don't think I should go for a fourth, but what else am I going to take here? Negate is questionable. I suppose I could go Manifold Key. Because if it makes that again, that Vorse Claw unblockable, could be a very nasty end game play, and it is only 4 mana to make that happen. So that, I think, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. What's the worst that could happen? And this one is a bit of a dud. I've got 2 mammoth spiders. The question is, shall I take the plummet? Because then that just gives me that out if there's anything that comes my way in the air. There's no point in taking that. There's not enough synergy with it. It is nice to get a +2/+2, but at 5 mana it's coming out very late and probably isn't right. I guess I could take this, but why? I think I'll just take the plummet. It doesn't feel good, but it's probably the right direction. I'll take the sprite. Let's take the sentinel, just because it gives me something that can attack and still act as a defender. No. I'll take another mammoth spider, I think. Don't really need any of these. Marauder's Axe. Might as well take a Heart Piercer Bow. Might as well take a Befuddle. And the planes can drop into the sideboard. So, where does that leave me? 56 cards, so cutting 16. I suspect a number of those healers are going to go. And the Soulmender may also go. It's nice to have 1-drops. That's not probably going to be a 1-drop for me. It's going to be very late on because I'm going to have very little white mana. So I think if I get rid of that, Fairy Miscreant play just did not work out, so we'll get rid of that. I'm probably going to be woefully short on 1-drops at this point, but wow, do I make up for it with 2-drops? Moat Piranhas doesn't really fit the strategy anymore. Neither does Weaponsmith. Brineborn Cutthroat somewhat does, because I've got quite a few instants. I don't have many flash, but I do have a few instants there. So I think I will keep the Brineborn Cutthroat. The Sprite, I thought I took 2 of those. What happened there? Did I maybe take? I think I took something else instead of that earlier on. So when I said another Metropolis Sprite, I meant the first. That is probably not going to be a big player. That could be though. If the Sprite comes out as a 1/2 and I plug that onto it, it becomes a 3/2 in the air, which potentially makes it very interesting. So I think I'll keep that. That's nice for the card draw. Not sure it's essential. That's nice for the card draw, and it's in the air, so it's quite powerful. That one's decent. Not to mention, sorry, this one's also an elemental, as is this one, which does help. Elemental twice, elemental. So we do have some good elemental synergy. If we can get that Risen Reef out and the Thicket Crasher, we've got a solid end to the game. Probably don't need 3 Mammoth Spiders. Let's go down to 2. I'll keep both of these in at the moment because they're both loud motorbike going by. Hopefully that wasn't too distracting. Let's go down to 2 healers instead of 3. Is that essential at all at this point? Probably not. Let's get rid of that. 8 more cards to go. I don't think that's necessary as a one-off. That I think I'll keep just in case I get something a bit too powerful for anything else to deal with. That could be powerful with the Vorse Claw, as I've said, but we've got the Zephyr Charge, so I don't think it's worth splashing in. So we're left with one thing that we can have in white. Is it worth even keeping white and therefore the Gifts of Paradise? Probably not at this point, so let's get rid of that and get rid of the Gifts of Paradise. And we're left with something that's a bit more efficient, and we're down to only needing to cut 3 more cards. We are light on removal. That's not ideal, but we do have potential for big creatures with trample and combat tricks. We can get rid of Flyer. we can get rid of a flyer, and we can get rid of an artifact creature or an enchantment. So we're not terribly off. I think this one will work in terms of the composition, but I still need to get rid of 3 cards. What do I want to get rid of? Oh, and of course the flyer removal is helped out by 2 mammoth spiders. Befuddle doesn't fit the strategy, although it is an instant and therefore adds to Bo1 Cutthroat. I don't really see myself leaving 3 mana open at the end of many turns, because I don't have many other things that could be played instead. If I'm going to do a combat trick like that, I'm probably just going to rely on this, because it's nearly the same benefit, but obviously having the 3 of them means that I've then got a +5 and then a +7 later in the game, so I think I'll keep those instead. So what to get rid of? Those should probably stay because they're elementals. This guy he's good, and I think I should keep him. This one's starting to feel like the odd one out. I have the Cloudkin Seer, which does almost the same thing. I have the Boreal Elemental in the air, and I have whatever's in the air because of Zephyr Charge. So I think, in reality, the Metropolis Sprite is superfluous at this point, so I'll get rid of it. And one more cut. I could cut a land, but I don't like going below 17. I think it's not the right thing to do. That, I think, is a very useful thing to keep in. So I think I want to keep that. Natural End, maybe that's the thing to go. What am I going to destroy with that? I could destroy an enchantment that's affecting one of my creatures, but I can also wave crash that. I could destroy an artifact creature like Diamond Knight, but they don't see play that often. I think they're uncommon, and therefore they're not likely to appear in multiples. Let's get rid of that and see what happens. Main decking Enchantment Hate, probably not the best thing anyway. Main decking Flyer Hate. I think in this format there's so many flyers that actually this is quite powerful. So yeah, I'm quite liking the look of this. I think it's a decent Elementals deck. I wasn't meaning to go into Elementals again, because I always seem to go into Elementals, but when the cards come up and you start seeing what you've got, this seemed to be a pretty decent blend of what was out there. We've not been well looked after in terms of the rares and mythics in this one, so I think if we run into some proper premium decks that have sort of Cavaliers or similar, or the big Chandras, we're potentially in a fair bit of trouble. But against another deck that's only really managed to get uncommons and commons, I think this is a pretty decent deck. So yeah, where are we? 15 creatures, 4 instants, 2 artifacts, 2 enchantments, and 17 lands. It's pretty average, I would say. Okay, well, we'll name it Elementals. And in the next video, we'll see how this one pans out. As always, any questions, any comments, do please, put them in the comments section. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be very grateful. And hopefully I'll see you for the next one of these. And I'm out now.